It's mostly going to come out in the urine.
Right, like 80%, right?
Yeah, because our ovaries, if they're making progesterone, and by the way, the adrenal glands in men make progesterone too, and neither one of them drains straight to the liver. Instead, it goes from the adrenals to the ovaries into the veins, and the veins drain it into the heart, and the heart pumps it all over the body. And then, once it's been there, it circulates past the liver, some of it does, and the liver's job is to get rid of this stuff. And so it grabs some and kicks it out in the stool and the urine. Now, what happens if we swallow those hormones? And that's why we never should. I'll take that back, never, but we really never should take testosterone or estrogen at all orally. Well, where's the gut drain? It drains straight to the liver. And, oh yeah, the liver's job is to get rid of the hormones. So when people swallow it, the large majority ends up in the urine and never went to their tissues. What's the point of that? Now, the only point I can think of is with progesterone. French research scientists first reported that when we swallow progesterone, unlike when it's rubbed on, which is the preferred way for most things, and we should talk about where to rub it on, too.
We're going to do that. We're definitely going to do that.
Yeah, unlike when it's rubbed on, the liver makes different metabolites. Somehow, when it comes from the gut, the liver does something different with it and makes metabolites called pregnanes, and that never happens when it's rubbed on. And oddly enough, those pregnanes are tranquilizers, and they seem to be harmless ones. So some women who are having a lot of trouble with nervousness, anxiety, and so on, if they take some of the progesterone by mouth, even though the large majority of it is going to end up in the urine, some of it's going to get to their brain and help them calm down. So what we usually will do there, and who's we? Well, we have 11 doctors at Tahoma Clinic, and we all do the hormones, and we all do the natural medicine and vitamins and minerals and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll split it. If she's real nervous and anxious and just needs to sleep better and that kind of thing, we'll say, okay, half of it, rub it in, half of it, swallow it. And then we take that into account when we look at the 24-hour urine test because, well, just for example, let's switch to DHEA for a moment. You can always tell when somebody's swallowing DHEA because the urine is just full of it. You never see it that high when it's being rubbed on.
Why do we need to supplement with DHEA when you've got all these other hormones going? What's the main benefit of DHEA?
Oh, my goodness, ma'am. DHEA.
Well, I know it's considered the great champion. It has been for years in anti-aging health, but I don't get it. If you could explain it to us, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. DHEA peaks in people's bodies, both men and women. It peaks at roughly the same age, 30. And from there on, it declines and goes downhill. Now, sometimes it goes downhill rapidly, and sometimes it goes down slowly. It varies from person to person, but it simply declines. Now, one of the big jobs of DHEA is to support the immune system. It helps many factors in the immune system so they can stay strong and healthy. You know how many of us, when we're way a whole lot older, die of pneumonia?
Yes.
It's kind of silly, but it's an infection, and DHEA helps our bodies fight off infections and stay stronger. Another thing is that DHEA helps to mitigate against many sorts of cancer. No kidding. Turns out, we've all heard this, but cancers like to live without oxygen. They live by what's called anaerobic metabolism.
Right.
Probably heard that.
Yep.
And it turns out that there is only one what biochemists call pathway of anaerobic metabolism that goes from actually blood sugar, glucose, through an enzyme called G6PD. I know I'm being technical. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We like it.
It goes through an enzyme called G6PD, and then it goes through several more steps, and then it gets to that cancer cell, and it burns it anaerobically without oxygen. All right. That G6PD enzyme is slowed down by DHEA. So we don't feed the tumor. If one is trying to develop itself, it's not going to do so as well because it can't draw the anaerobic energy. There's only one pathway, and the DHEA is standing like a guard over that pathway. So both supporting the immune system and helping to mitigate against some cancers makes it kind of important.
I would imagine that DHEA, like the other hormones, is dosage sensitive, as well as how is it taken?
Yes, it's rubbed in like all the rest.
Okay.
Yeah, because, again, even coming from the adrenals, it doesn't go straight to the liver ever.
Let's talk about ways that people can take hormones. I understand your preference, which is take it in a cream or a gel, and it's rubbed in, but not necessarily just on the body and the skin the way a lot of women have been putting hormones on their bodies, like on their stomach or their arms.
Now, I've been working with this long enough. It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that if you do something for long enough, you're bound to notice some things. And I worked with a number of women and a few men back in the 80s who would come back and say, I'm just not feeling so good on these hormones like I did the first few months or the first 3 years. And so we'd say, oh, all right, are you still getting the same prescriptions at the pharmacy, still rubbing in the same amount? Yes, yes. Oh, okay, well, let's just measure your levels and see where they are. And sure enough, the levels were lower. I say, you sure you're using the same amount? Are you sure? Yes, I know. See, here's how much I'm pushing out of the syringe. Here's how much I'm pushing out of the syringe. I'm rubbing it in like I always did. Well, let's double-check your numbers. And we'd give them a free test because the first one might have been wrong. And sure enough, they'd still be lower. Well, one day I finally woke up and thought, there's a difference in body surfaces. There's skin, and skin has fat cells under it. And then there's what's called mucous membrane. And mucous membrane is like lips, where you can't see any fat cells under there, or inside the nose, or for women, inside the vaginal area, that's not skin, or inside the labia. For men, well, yeah, there's lips and nose, but we don't want to really put our hormones there. And the only area in the whole male pelvis is right outside the anal opening. No kidding. That's where people would grow hemorrhoids if they were going to grow hemorrhoids, and that's a mucous membrane. If anybody's ever been 6 years old with a mirror and been looking around, you can see that tissue is different. It doesn't have fat cells under it. Now, mucous membranes, we did a couple, 3 people, just some basic tests. All right, it's not working anymore. You're using the same amount. Your numbers are definitely lower than they've been in past years. Now, still use the exact same amount and switch it to the mucous membrane surface, please. And they did, and they all felt better, every one. And we checked their numbers again, and look at that. They're right where they were when they first started using them. And what I found out over time, this just takes time, is that sooner or later, the large majority of folks, if they keep rubbing it on the skin, anywhere on the skin, doesn't matter where on the skin, they can change locations off and all that, sooner or later it will just quit absorbing as well. I don't know why. It's just an observed fact. But if they switch that same dose to the mucous membrane, bingo, it starts to work again, and it doesn't quit working. It never does quit working if it's on a mucous membrane. So, again, I don't know why that happens.
Fascinating.
It happens, and some people it happens in a few months, and some people it happens after a number of years.
What do you think about this xenoestrogens? People are very concerned about all the products we put on our skin, the pesticides that are in our bodies now, and I guess it's called xenoestrogens?
Well, xeno just means it's a non-estrogen that comes from, quote, the environment, unquote. Now, the reason I put quotes around the environment is that it's only the environment of the last 100 years or so. 10,000 years ago, there weren't xenoestrogens, unless we thought of maybe animal estrogens or some of the plant estrogens that way. But what are generally designated as xenoestrogens are the multitude of chemicals that are used as herbicides, pesticides, plasticizers, and all those things that come with so-called modern living that unfortunately have the ability of screwing with one's estrogen metabolism and hitting into the wrong estrogen receptors and raising the risk of cancer. So if we're correctly identifying xenoestrogens as the production of molecules that act like estrogen but have never been found on this planet, ever, they're bad guys.
And I would imagine that what you're describing would show up somewhere in the urine test, but is there a portion of what you see in the urine test that's being impacted, whether we know it or not, from them?
No, because the 24-hour urine test is designed to just check at this time, it just checks all of the bioidentical